Today I'm joined in the studio with the candidates running for Minnesota elected office 65A for the House of Representatives. I'm joined by Rena Moran, Anthony Meshke, Lena Buggs. Rena is the incumbent, DFL elected. Anthony Meshke is the Republican. And Lena Buggs is the Green Party. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
As the way the format will go, you will get 2 minutes to open, and Rena has decided to go first.
Okay, well, thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm really excited about the opportunity to really speak to the folks in the state of Minnesota. My name is Rena Moran. I am the incumbent for District 65A and really excited to have the opportunity to run for re-election. You know, over the last 2 years, we have had a really great 2 years with the huge investment that we've made in education, from early learning to all-day K to free lunches to really freezing college tuition for 2 years to investing $100 million in housing to really working on making the Women Economic Security Act, you know, a place where women can go and be valued for their place in the workforce. You know, I'm really excited because I have the opportunity to really bring the voice of the people to the Capitol and to make those connections from the Capitol back into the community. And that has happened with such bills like the Promised Neighborhood Bill, where we have looked at creating better educational outcomes by investing in education through a holistic approach. Really excited about that bill. Was the lead author for Equal Pay for Equal Work for Women. Very excited about that. And also looking at dementia. So often women are the providers of their elderly parents. And a lot of times in the communities of color, especially in the Black community, we don't really know what that means. So creating a task force and putting funding into educating our community on the impact of dementia is really, really important. So, you know, I look forward to continue to do the work because we have so much more that we need to do with continued investment in early learning, with all the research around the ACEs and brain development, and getting our children a great start by investing in early learning is crucial to better outcomes in the long term. So that's something that we need to do, something that I work towards, ensuring that, you know, our kids are graduating out of high school and ready to go into college or ready to go into a career, whichever one they choose, but it's something that must be done. It's a priority for me, and it really creates a stronger community and stronger schools and stronger families. So really excited about the opportunity to run for re-election.
Thank you, Rena. Candidate Anthony Meshke.
I'm Anthony Meshke, and I want to start by saying I believe everyone listening to this is smart, capable, and you do not need a politician telling you what to do. I'm a Marine, and I served 4 years active duty. I married my wife, Rose, 4 years ago, and I am a mechanical engineer. I have a 1-year-old daughter. Her name is Ruby, and I have a son due in December. I want to eliminate a bunch of laws if I get into office. I want to eliminate a bunch of laws that are infringing on everyone's freedom. I want to decriminalize all forms of weed. I want to stop spending money on stadiums. I want to legalize fireworks, stop corporate welfare, legalize raw milk. I want to make sure the roads are clear of ice in the winter. I want to legalize Sunday liquor and Sunday car sales. I want to give schools the ability to employ teachers based on performance. I believe every parent should have the freedom to make choices for their children, including what their children learn in school, what their children eat in school, and what is injected into their children by doctors. I'm sick of the government forcing people to buy things, spying on every phone call without warrants, killing Americans without a trial or jury, and putting people in prison for victimless crimes. Rena Moran is limiting everyone's freedom. She voted against the right of self-defense with HF 1467. She voted against fireworks, SF 1694. Rena gave the state the authority to store babies' blood samples by not even voting on that bill, SF 2047. She voted against paying off the school debt, HF 2083. Rena voted to only employ teachers based upon seniority instead of performance, HF 1870. She voted for higher property taxes, HF 2337, and she voted to give $350 million of your tax money to the Vikings, HF 2958. She voted for the forced unionization of child care providers, SF 778. I do not support Rena in any of these mentioned bills. Please help me support the people's natural right to liberty and freedom, and please check out my Facebook page, Anthony Meshke for MN, to see my videos and order some road signs, Meshke for weed or Meshke for fixing roads.
Thank you. Welcome. Candidate Lena Buggs, Green Party.
Well, hello, Minnesota. I want to say hello to the residents in my district, 65A. My name's Lena Buggs. I'm running as a Green Party endorsed candidate. I'm running as the answer to the corporate-owned two-party system of the Democrats and the Republicans. I'm also running because this past legislative session, there were a lot of bills and a lot of laws that got missed, for instance. The move to amend legislation, which says corporations aren't people and money is not speech. It was basically a bill to limit big money in politics. That didn't get passed. The transportation funding didn't get passed. The Minnesota sex offender program, that didn't get passed. There were a lot of bills, a lot of good legislation. The GMO labeling bill by a good friend of mine, Representative Karen Clark, that didn't get passed as well too. But I am a political organizer. I'm a financial advisor by trade. So I have the finance and economic background to be able to do this job. This transitions me perfectly for being the state rep. Now, I want everybody to know the importance of a state representative's job is to not only find resources that complement our district, but complement the state. So I want to thank you for hosting this debate, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I say everyone has said a mouthful to get it going, and I think we're looking forward to our listeners here in this KFAI listening audience is looking forward to hearing your answers to some of our most important questions. Let's start off with jobs. That's the number one thing. The governor is proposing, Governor Dayton, who's currently running, is proposed several job strategies that he wants to employ. The biggest one I think that's going to impact most people is the raising of the gas tax. Candidate Moran, or elected Representative Moran, what are your thoughts on that?
So I guess when we look at the raising of the gas tax, that is really for the purpose of creating a strong transportation bill. And when I look at raising the gas, that wouldn't be, one, it really couldn't pay for creating a transportation bill. It's just not enough resources to make that happen. When I look at job creation, I want to look really into District 65A and what that means for really creating jobs, really for a lot of our young people who have nothing to do. So often we see them in the streets, hanging in the streets. Sometimes we see them, not having the resources that they need to be productive citizens. So I would rather promote some of the nonprofits and our organizations who are doing great work to engage community, to engage our youth, to get the funding to those communities at the grassroots level, to engage, to educate, to train, to give our young people the skills that they need so that they can be productive citizens. I also would like to, looking at District 65 and looking at opportunities and looking at the job disparities that are within our community, is looking at creating a process where giving people, a second chance. I think my opponent over here talked about one that, well, I don't remember quite how he framed it, but what I do know when we look at constituents being incarcerated in high numbers, that incarceration is disproportionately impacting the black community. And the only way we're going to have a strong community is find a way that we can create opportunities for all of us. So that is how I look at a job bill that is reaching down at the grassroots level with everyday constituents, everyday parents who have the opportunity to go to a job where they can afford child care. So it's how do we create those possibilities for all of us in District 65A and not just some of us.
Candidate
Meshke, what was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think we should be raising the gas tax. I think we should stop spending money, $350 million on stadium, $90 million on a Senate office building. That's money right there that should be going back to the people. That's people's money, and we're giving it to the representatives. They're keeping it for themselves in a new building, over $1 million per office, or they're giving it to a large corporation, or the Vikings. They're a private business and they're profitable, so we shouldn't be giving them the people's tax money. Talk about jobs in the district. Look how many businesses have been shut down because of light rail construction. Light rail's there. I think we should be using it more. But in the space that light rail went in, we could have fit in 2 or 3 more lanes and put in bus lanes. I mean, there are other options there that would have been a lot cheaper, could have been a lot better for people driving to and from work, and it wouldn't have shut down all the businesses. I was just at my village the other day, and construction there, their business is down the lowest it's ever been. And I've seen a lot of businesses close. Burger King, like 2 months into it, just closed instantly. I mean, that's jobs in the neighborhood. And people, I mean, those jobs aren't going to come back anytime soon because they're boarded up and opened up somewhere else outside the district.
Thank you, Candidate Meshke. Candidate Buggs, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm not in support of the gas tax. I think when it comes to jobs and economic development, you have to sit on that committee if you're elected as state rep for District 65A. So it all comes down to committee assignments. So if you talk about jobs and economic development, you have to sit on that committee. I'm a big proponent of a $15 an hour cost of living wage. Notice I said use the terminology cost of living as opposed to minimum wage, which this past legislative session, the current power structure, the Democrats came out with a regressive $9.50 minimum wage, which keeps people in poverty, keeps people at 40% below the poverty. And, giving corporate welfare to Ziggy Wolf and the Vikings was another misstep of which Rena Moran voted for that legislation. You have to look at government waste first. And I think that, investing in commuter rail and light rail when we already had a pretty decent bus system, I just don't think that was a very prudent decision. I mean, you have to exercise what we in the financial world call fiduciary responsibility, and you have to perform due diligence. So I think the more radical approach to creating jobs is, number one, you have to stop the waste. $950+ million went to light rail and commuter rail. So you have to stop government waste. I also think that by employing people at a cost of living wage of $15 per hour, that gives people more money in their pockets, families. They're able to expend that money into the community and into the economy. It's better for businesses. Now, when you're talking about what we can do to help small businesses, because I'm a big proponent of helping small businesses. I think small businesses have gotten lost in the shuffle with the introduction of light rail. So we need to be cutting taxes for small businesses, but we also need to have some sort of subsidies where small businesses can tap into resources to help with labor costs as well too.
Thank you for that, for your answer on that. Given that the topic of jobs still has stayed within that range, one of the key components of the job has been MnDOT. MnDOT is a major employer throughout the state. MnDOT receives quite a bit of money to create jobs through our natural processes of road reconstruction. But yet we found that that's been somewhat out of kilter for people of color as far as the employment goes and also contracting. Let's start with Lena on this particular one. What's your thoughts on and how can we fix MnDOT to a certain degree?
Well, I think that we all would agree that MnDOT is a broken system, along with the Met Council. Those two systems are broken. In terms of getting contracting for minority contractors or minority employers, there has to be some sort of legislation created, an employment law that would dictate how communities of colors would bid on these contracts.
And your answer, Anthony?
Yeah, Lena hit on a good point. The Met Council, I mean, that is not a very, I mean, that should be abolished to begin with. And then the MnDOT, I mean, we should start getting things down to the lowest possible level. Let the counties decide what roads should be fixed. Let the cities decide what roads should be fixed. The state should be making decisions for these local communities. On the issue of race, I mean, I don't believe we should be looking at contracts based on the race. I mean, when we are doing that, we aren't looking at the best option out there as far as price-wise, miles of road per cost. I mean, if you're looking at it based on race, I don't think that's what the government should be blind in the issue of race.
We can never be blind on the issue of race because racism is something that is very valid and real, and we know that if we look at the history of the United States of America, it was built on the back of racism. So it does matter, and I think we have to look at it.
Slavery's wrong.
Yeah. So, and looking at MnDOT and the Met Councils, the one thing we look at District 65A and the Green Line and University Avenue, we are a community of people who advocated wholeheartedly because we knew MnDOT would not do the right thing. One of the reasons we have the 3 stops right now on Hamlin and Western and Victoria is because of the community that came out in opposition to the current status of the Green Line. So sometimes, we can clearly see and say that, yeah, MnDOT has not been effective in creating jobs and really looking at meeting those hiring goals that the Department of Human Rights had put forth. I have been working with the YWCA in St. Paul, who have dollars that they have gotten from MnDOT to train men and women to be prepared for those jobs that comes out of the MnDOT. And what has been an issue and the problem in that process is that they are not hiring the people who have been trained and are ready and prepared. And so now it's this work with Billy Collins from the YWCA and others to really engage MnDOT around not just giving them funding to train and prepare community members to get the jobs that they are so readily trained to have, but also push them on hiring, because that is what we need. We need people in District 65A to be working, to be self-sufficient, to be capable of taking care of themselves and their family.
Given that the topic of hiring in your District 65A, can you please give me some statistics that you are aware of that your constituents have presented to you regarding the employment, the racial makeup of your districts, in addition to your business versus assistance that's garnered in your districts? And let's start with Anthony first.
Yeah, the government should stop trying to squeeze money they're trying to squeeze money out of these businesses. They look at the businesses as revenue generation for taxes. We should look at them as a benefit to the area, not as a detriment, and try and punish them for moving into the area by high property taxes. We should get government, we shouldn't be providing subsidies for these companies to pay employees. I mean, we're paying people when they aren't working, and then we're paying people when they are working. I mean, when does a taxpayer get a break from this? There's like the warehouse tax and things like that. I mean, there's so many taxes out there that are affecting the businesses, and it's disproportionate they're creating a lot of value for the society and for our area, and yet we're punishing them for being in our area.
Okay. Rena?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The question was, I wanted to know your understanding of your district's makeup, whether the percentage of minorities in your district, including the percentages of business in your district, and I wanted to get some numbers, the percentage of working class citizens in your districts and those receiving public assistance. Those are the items that typically most people. If you like a second shot at this, if my question isn't clear, just stop and ask.
Well, I don't have those data available. I don't know them offhand. Had I had that question before, I would have prepared for having some stats for you. But what I can say is that the impact of, we're looking at jobs in District 65A, I mean, we can look in general at the St. Paul, and we know that with the crisis that happened in 2010, 2011, 2012, when so many people was losing houses, not only businesses and houses and homes, but going through a whole foreclosure crisis, that it was African Americans who were, again, and people of color who were disproportionately impacted by that crisis. So the number is high, and we look at comparison to Minneapolis, we can still say within St. Paul, those who, the hiring, the numbers and those who have been hired has not increased over the last 2 to 3 years. We still have so much work to do. But I would like to say that one of the first bills that I introduced in 2011 when I was sworn in, because of the impact of the light rail and what I was really afraid that would happen to not only me as a homeowner, but so many other homeowners who live in the Central Corridor, folks who have lived in that area all their lives, who would be impacted by the light rail, was that there would be increased taxes. And because of the increased taxes, because of property value going up, increased taxes, that many folks, not only businesses, but homeowners, would be taxed out of their homes. So one of the first bills I dropped was to try to get a cap from preventing those who had invested their livelihoods in businesses, but also as becoming homeowners, to not be pushed out of their homes. That bill was not heard in 2012. I reintroduced it again in 2013. It has not been heard again because the tax committee chair did not believe in capping taxes. So once again, I'm going to introduce that again. Should I be reelected in 2015? Because I believe that those who have invested in District 65A, especially in the Central Corridor, should be protected or prevented from being pushed out of their homes because of increased taxes.
Candidate Buggs, what is your thoughts on that? Do we need to rephrase the question? Are you pretty clear with the question was?
I'm pretty clear. If I need
Okay.
further clarification, I
All
won't
right.
hesitate to ask you, but I'm glad that you asked this question. I first want to say that I think it's deplorable as a state representative that you don't know the demographics and the racial makeup of your city. You
I don't
asked
think
for,
he asked that question about
yes,
the
he
racial
did.
makeup.
You
He wanted
asked,
the
I'm
stats on
I'm
it.
speaking
sorry.
right
I'm
now.
sorry. She's got the
Yeah.
mic. So
Okay.
and so to make clarification, the question was exactly as she's answering it. I asked for the makeup of the district. I asked for the percentage
Oh, I
of
could've gave you
businesses.
that makeup.
I asked you the percentage of businesses. I asked for the percentage of people who were working in your district, and also the percentage who were receiving assistance in your district. If those were if you had those answers, so
Yeah,
she
okay.
is correct in that.
Just to continue, the demographics, our district is one of the most diverse districts in the country. We have residents who earn very little. We have residents who live in the affluent Summit U neighborhood. The racial makeup is 41.5% Caucasian, 32.5% African American, and 20% Asian, with the rest being non-determined, different ethnicities, if you will. You asked a question about the percentage that are receiving public assistance. 27% of our residents are receiving some sort of public assistance. We have 20% of our elders ages 65 and older who are receiving some sort of Social Security, disability benefits in our district. Our district financially is a very poor district. We have 16% of the residents in our district who are making under $25,000 a year. We have 12% of the residents in our district who are earning less than $10,000 a year. You asked for businesses. Well, the business makeup, we have roughly about 8% of our population who serve in government entities and who work government jobs. We have 85% who work private sector jobs. So our district is extremely, it's very diverse. You know, we had this past legislative session, I believe there was a financial appropriation of $100 million that was allocated towards housing. And folks, this is why I'm running. I'm running in direct opposition to the pretend progressive policies, because we have in our district 1,226 vacant homes. Ms. Moran has 3 vacant homes on her block. Folks, this ought not be. So what I'm gaining, should I be elected, is I'm hoping that, you know, I have a lot of, I have the ability to work across party lines, being a Green Party endorsed candidate. I will not only caucus with the Democrats, I will caucus with the Republicans. It's all about relationship building, and I have those relationships at the Capitol. So, I mean, we've got some serious issues that we have to deal with: the wealth disparities, the employment disparities, housing disparities. Thank you.
Well, I thank you for the answer. If there was any misconception in my last question, if you'd like a chance to take a minute to clear anything up, feel free. Do you have any?
No, those really good numbers. You have studied those numbers really well, and that is absolutely great and fantastic. You know, but yes, District 65 is a very diverse district. You know, it's not, Summit U is not an affluent district. Summit U district is part of the Rondo community.
It is an affluent
You know,
district.
and there's not many within that district. Affluent is, I guess, a beholder of the eye, you know, and I wouldn't say it was affluent.
Well,
Okay.
I would say
Right,
Right.
it's definitely a working class. Some are working class,
Anthony,
but
is there?
those numbers were good.
Would you like to take a chance to?
Yeah, I knew the makeup was about 20% Asian, about 40% African American, about 40 Caucasian. I didn't know them as exact as Lena did. That was very well. But I've been running my campaign based on race. I mean, I'm trying to get liberty and freedom for everyone in the district. I'm not trying to pick out one race over another. I'm trying to give it for everyone equally. I don't want any bills to be singling out people specifically. I want it to be there for everyone. And then I would also want to say that there are less jobs available in St. Paul than 2 or 4 years ago with unionization childcare that has driven some people out of business. And it's also one of my friends, he has autistic children and he has to hire helpers, and that unionization affected that, and he is not able to hire them anymore.
With that being stated, one of the key components that's in the governor's race right now is the auditing of programs in the state of Minnesota, and I think candidate Johnson has run several ads, and candidate and Governor-elect Dayton has also run some rebuttal ads. Anthony, what are your thoughts on that, and what would you do if you were elected to try to help the taxpayer be held accountable for whether the people that receive the taxpayer dollars be held accountable?
And we have way too many unelected bureaucrats out there that are getting grants from the government and giving them out to who they want. I mean, there's no accountability there. We need to audit all this. We need to rein in the controls into the government. We need to start looking at efficiencies and where everyone's tax money is actually going. I mean, I believe that people are best able to spend their own money instead of giving it up to some government or some bureaucrat and letting them decide what the government should buy.
Rena?
I think accountability is important, absolutely. I think when we look at the systems that have been over the last 10 years underfunded, resources have been taken away from many of those systems, and people, we don't really have, within the state government, we don't have the capacity to do the work that has been over the last 10 years forced on many state entities. You know, there has been so many unfunded mandates that has been a part of the administration over the last 15 years, you know. And again, I am really, really proud of the work that we have done over the last 2 years and the investment that we have made into human capital, and to even look at how we can continue to invest in education. I think that is one of the key when we're looking at a district like ours, to ensure that our young people are graduating out of high school, capable of going to college. When we look at how the educational system within the last 15 years has been underfunded, and so much has been put on with those systems to perform, yes, we have to have accountability, but we also have to make sure that their resources are available so that we can do the work that we as a state say is our priority, and that is our children.
Thank you.
I would, go ahead.
Lena, can I get your answer?
Yes, I am all for auditing certain programs. I think we need to take a closer look at the programs that are working versus the ones that aren't. At the top of the program, I said that we needed to exercise what's called fiduciary responsibility and due diligence. So I think that some of the programs that are in question actually need to be means tested first to see if they're working or if they're not. If they aren't working, then I propose that we get rid of those programs. However, let me say this, because during the last legislative session, there was approximately $350 million that got cut from the Health and Human Services budget. So while I am a proponent of audits, I do want to say that it is necessary, and government does have a role to play to some degree to serve its citizens.
Given that one of the biggest items that's come under the scrutiny of of everyone has been the American Care Act. The American Care Act has had some missteps in implementation, and it's necessary because of the number of people who were excluded from getting insurance coverage. What are your thoughts on some of the things that could be used as if you're elected to make the American Care Act work better? Would you keep it? Would you want the state to not have it? Rena?
So we are talking about the Affordable Care Act.
The Affordable Care Act.
Yes. And so I would say the Affordable Care Act has had a really, we can say, a rocky start. You know, looking at the website, you know, really working to ensure that people have access and coverage in a timely manner. But I would say the Affordable Care Act is needed. So before the Affordable Care Act, there were so many people who were using the emergency room as their primary care. We can't do that. Before the Affordable Care Act, we had individuals who could not get covered because of a pre-existing condition. We cannot do that. Before the Affordable Care Act, it was unaffordable. You know, so it has a role to play. Yes, we have to do better to make sure it stays affordable, that we have to make sure that it's going to roll out in a way that's going to be efficient and effective for the families who need coverage. So I, as a legislator who is the vice chair of Health and Human Service, who worked really hard over these last 2 years to work to ensure that the Affordable Care Act became the law of the land. I'm proud that it is a part of the state of Minnesota. It is the law, and that we are working to ensure that every family have coverage.
Anthony.
Yeah, let's look at how the government does healthcare. Let's look at the VA. I'm a veteran. I followed the VA scandal very closely. I mean, that's what we can expect out of the Affordable Care Act. I mean, when we give government the control over something that they don't have experience in, is healthcare, and they've proved that they are not good at providing that care. Talking about, Rena hit on the unaffordability of healthcare. I would say that's due to government's interference. They're driving up the costs of all this. When you remove the free market from people, they can't choose on which doctor they go to, they can't choose what they get. The government's just writing a blank check to these medical providers and hospitals and things like that. So of course everyone's going to the emergency room to get their primary care because they don't have to pay for it anymore. Everyone else is picking up the bill. So I think we should be providing services for the people, but there's private hospitals out there, there's people donating money, there's nonprofits that are able to do this care. People should be paying for the services they're receiving, or at least part of the services that they're receiving. I believe that insurance should be able to be bought across state line. I mean, we're limiting healthcare to one state. I mean, do you think one state has all the options for everyone in there? No, I mean, we should be able to buy insurance across state lines, like vehicle insurance or any insurance or anything else. I guess that's what I want to say on that. And another thing about the Affordable Care Act is the government is forcing you to buy something. I do not think that is right.
Lena.
Well, I think that all Americans and all residents here in our great state of Minnesota, primarily in my District 65A, should have access to health care. And this is one of the fundamental differences that you'll find between myself and candidate Meshke and candidate Moran. I am a proponent of a single-payer health care system where the government would be the administrator but not the employer. I think this whole debacle with Mensure is a complete and entire mess. The software, the website rollout has just been disastrous. We have currently 15% with Mensure. We still have 15% of the residents in my district who aren't insured. And that's terrible, that's deplorable, and that ought not be. With a single-payer health care system, you basically would eliminate the co-pays and the deductibles. Now, back in 2010, when Ms. Moran first ran, she advocated for a single-payer health care system. I mean, there's YouTube videos of her out there saying this.
And I still believe in it.
However, yeah, and see, this is what I mean by pretend progressive policies. Because if you believe in it, then you would author that legislation, and that hasn't been done. Thank you.
Let's move on to the topic of public safety and the role of government in that public safety and the implementation of public safety. We have a large number of our citizens have been incarcerated, many of color. We also have alleged police brutality that has occurred. The topic the question is broad. If you are elected, what would be your number one item that you would try to address to assist this great state with this public safety? Anthony?
Yeah, first thing, try and get as much freedom to the people as possible. I support fully legalizing marijuana. I don't do drugs, I don't have any desire to do it, but that doesn't mean I want to limit someone else's right to do that in their house or anywhere else. Now, people always bring up, well, if somebody's doing it in their house and they're neglecting their kids or abusing their kids, I mean, that's a crime right now. If you are using force on someone else, or you're fraud, if you're using force or fraud on someone else, that is a crime, and that's what the government should be focusing on. They're focusing on these victimless crimes, and what's that doing is breaking up families, and then you have a single-parent household. How is that person supposed to work and be involved in their kids' schooling? I mean, these victimless crimes are part of the reason why we're having these education problems. The parents aren't being able to be involved, and we're filling up the prisons. So all the police are focusing on people who are doing victimless crimes, and I mean, people's houses aren't being protected, And with Rena voting to take away our right to self-defense on our own property, I mean, the police are focused on this other thing, and then she takes away our right. I mean, what are the people supposed to be doing?
Lena.
Well, I'm glad that you brought the issue of public safety up. If elected, one of my first courses of action is going to be to enact legislation that would require police officers to carry insurance when they brutalize members of our community. We have the issue of police brutality is very prevalent in the city of St. Paul. Now, I'm 43 years old. Back when I was a youth, you used to see policemen walking the beat. Used to see community policing. Used to see police at county fairs. They were building that public trust. That public trust has dissipated. The youth no longer trust the police. Subsequently, communities of color are being impacted greatly by being brutalized by the police. I think police should be required to carry body cams as well, too. I also think that in addition to that, policing is a necessary evil. I mean, we want to protect people and keep people safe, but at the same time, I mean, under the current guise of these abuses of power that our public safety officials are lording over our communities is just deplorable right now. So I would introduce that legislation to require them to carry insurance, because after so many instances, then you no longer become insurable, and then you lose your job. And that should happen if you're brutalizing members of the community. Thank you.
Rena.
A couple of things that I would say that I also agree that community policing is really important. To have some police walking the beat, I think is hugely important to build those relationships. And so we're not seeing members of the community as those people, those bad people all the time. It's about relationships. I also agree that, maybe some body cams on policemen is a great idea. But I also believe that we want to talk about public safety. Public safety is not always about policing and policemen. Public safety is creating jobs in our community. Public safety is about ensuring that our libraries and our parks and recs are open to give our children resources and opportunity to be engaged in structured activities. That, for me, is what is really crucial to a community in District 65A, is to create opportunities, bring in resources for an under-resourced community that is starving for opportunities, to make sure that we are working within our school system so our kids are successful in our school system. Bringing back after school programs, because the statistics tell us that between the time of after school and 7 or 8 o'clock is where crimes happen. So if we get our children engaged in productive activities, that within itself will alleviate some of what will say that in our district is disrupted children. I think our children needs to be engaged in some processes. But job creation is really, really important. Our parks and recs and our library opportunity is a big part for me in creating a safe environment.
And my final question, and I'll give you a chance to give your closing statements. Everyone has a passion, and if you were elected, what would be the passion that you would pursue most likely throughout your first 2 years when you're elected? What's your passions? And I'd like to start with, I think it should be Lena this time.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. All right, we're going according to height now. No, I've always had a passion to help people. I've always been a big proponent of advocating for cost of living wages. My first bill, should I be elected, will be a bill that will bring $15 an hour jobs to the residents that live in our district. I mean, we have such a high, nearly 20% of our residents are living at poverty or below the poverty level. And I believe that a more holistic approach towards getting people gainful employment will cut down on some of the other societal ills that we have in our district, such as housing disparities, employment law disparities. So you have to start first with getting people employed with jobs and economic development. I hope to serve on that committee should I be elected, but I think it's very important that we start getting people on an upward trajectory where we bring them from poverty to prosperity.
Okay. Anthony.
Yeah, while I'm in office, one of the things I've been focused on is reading every bill. I mean, that's what we need to be doing. The bills shouldn't be so monstrous that we can't read them and understand. I mean, they should be simple, to the point. There shouldn't be a bunch of amendments to it and hidden bills and backroom dealings on that. I wanted to vote on the principle that government's role is limited, and it should be there to protect our freedoms instead of controlling us. I'd want to stop a lot of government spending on the Senate office building and the stadiums, and we should be working on getting police back to walking the beats and protecting people instead of focusing on revenue generation and victimless crimes.
Rena.
I guess because I'm a mother of 7 children, and a big part of what I care and value and fight for is the availability to have strong families and a strong community, which in my mind creates a strong state. And some of the things, I have lots of passions, and from housing to creating a welfare system that allows us to be self-sufficient, that moves us up out of poverty, to creating second chances. But what my biggest passion at this moment is to create opportunities for parents, for mostly mothers who are at home with their children, to be able to go into the workforce. But in order to do that, childcare has to be affordable. So if I had to drop one bill immediately, it would be that we can put some funding into the sliding scale fee for childcare, so that mothers or fathers who are looking for work can do that, but also get the support from the state for childcare. That is absolutely unaffordable. And we in the state of Minnesota are at the 3rd worst in the nation around childcare affordability. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. It is a high priority to me because it's really important that we are a community of people who are able to go back to work. That's what I heard as I knocked thousands of doors. My first election is what I hear. My second election is what I'm hearing now. People want to go to work. People are not looking for the state to take care of them. But there has to be a path for that to happen.
Given that we started out with a random, I just said left to right, pick one for closing statements. We're going to go from lowest to highest. That's the closing statement. So whoever got number 3 is number 1. Whoever got number 2 will be second. And whoever got 1 will be last. So what were your numbers?
Anthony Meshke got 2.
Lena Buggs has 3.
That leaves me with 1.
There we go. Your closing statement.
Well, folks, you've heard some of the transformative ideas that I have for legislation. You've heard of my ideas to require police to carry insurance when they brutalize members of the community and requiring them to carry body cams. You've heard of my platform, which is cost of living wages. I'll bring $15 an hour jobs to the residents in our district. Community-based economics, which keeps the money here in the communities for residents in our district. Ecological wisdom that would require labeling of GMO products in retail stores and grocery outlets. Sustainable housing, which takes a more holistic approach to housing, which doesn't require credit as a discriminatory practice to keep people from home ownership. If your views align with my views, I ask for your vote to vote Buggs November 4th and to get big money out of politics. I am the only candidate whose contributions solely come from working people, from the disabled, from seniors. I already have the proven skills and the leadership ability. I've been a citizen advocate at the state capitol for the past 9 years. I've also gotten some legislation not passed, but a task force created on for welfare and the waste and the fraud that's going there. But more importantly, I've been able to, with the donations from the public, I've been able to already create $15 an hour jobs. So a vote for Lena is a vote for $15 an hour jobs, bringing people from poverty to prosperity. Expungements for felons. We've got to do something regarding getting felons reacclimated into society. That's going to help. Full expungements for nonviolent crimes is going to help with getting jobs and housing. So I ask for your vote November 4th. Regardless of party, I would say that I'm the best candidate. Thank you.
Anthony.
I'd just like to thank everyone for listening in on this. Just want to touch on what Lena just said, that She's been an advocate at the state for 9 years. I've never been an advocate at the state. I work full time. I work 40 hours a week. I mean, that's what I do. So this is something that I'm passionate about. And then Rena, I want to hit on a few things. She said that the cost of childcare is going up, and I would say that's partly to do because of the unionization. I mean, what she's saying isn't what she's passing in the Capitol building. So she's limiting those resources, and that's why they're becoming expensive. Another thing that Rena said earlier was on education. She says children are very important, but yet she voted to not pay off the school debt, and she voted to only employ teachers based on seniority. When you look at that thing, or that the teachers based on seniority, what is that? That's payback to unions. And when you look at the unionization of childcare, what is that? That's payback to unions. So I would look at Rena's endorsement page. I mean, over half of them are unions. You want to talk about big money. So I don't have any endorsements like that. I've been running, getting small donations from people. And then I guess that's what I'm about. I want to get the government out of people's lives. I want to have them stop trying to force injections on our children, on my child. I want my children to have more freedom than I do. And thank you. I hope you can vote for me this November, and check out my website, anthony4mn.com, anthony4mn.com.
Rena.
So, and I really, well, first I just want to thank you, Lennie, for the invitation to be here and an invitation to speak to the residents and the constituents of District 65A and the people in the state of Minnesota. And I just got to respond. The whole unionizing of child care providers and PCA worker was not, we did not unionize them. It was to create a vote for them to decide whether or not they would like to be unionized. I voted to pay back the school debt, and we did it, and I'm very happy that it happened. You know, the state was closed down because Republicans wanted to really not invest in education, but more important than that, they wanted tax rates for millionaires. And so I am, and have been since day one, a collaborator. I am very engaged in diverse communities. My campaign, my relationship is about bringing diverse communities together to participate around common values. And those common values would be to ensure that we have sustainable, affordable housing, that we have a great educational system where our kids are graduating out of, that we have medical insurance where we are not using the emergency room for health care, but it is affordable, and we all have it. No child should be without health care. And it is a strong belief of mine that government has a place in people's lives to make their lives better. I would stand on that. I would advocate for that. And I would just like to say, you know, my running and being in the House of Representatives has never been about me, but has been about the people. To create a space where 65A have a voice at the Capitol, but not just that I'm representing their voice at the Capitol, but I am bringing people into that process to have a voice for themselves, to empower people to be a part of the process. I stand on that. I value that. I have many relationships and partnership with the Republican parties because I believe in collaboration. If you look at my bills that have passed, they have been bipartisan bills. I work to continue to represent the voice of District 65A, all who are in that, all the diversity that goes with that. I am a reflection of that, and everyone around me can represent that reflection of our state. And so it is really important to me that as I create laws and policies and work with legislators to do that, that the laws and policies that we create are a reflection of the state that we represent, and it's about ensuring that we are creating a place where all of us, with the diversity that we bring to the table, is represented in creating better outcomes, whether that is with all the systems I'm talking about, but also to have a strong, effective community.
In light of the overrun, I can only say in light of the overrun, for that closing statement a little bit, I'm going to have to be fair and give the other candidates at least a minute to add to your time for your closing statement, if you would like to. Anthony?
Lena, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would like to say that Rena did vote for not paying off the school debt, and she did vote to employ teachers based on seniority. And so she's advocating for a lot of things, and then she's voting differently. That's basically the only thing that I wanted to correct. And I guess another thing is she's advocating for giving giving money to large corporations such as the Viking Stadium, and I do not support that.
You're it for a minute?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that, and this is why I'm running, the rhetoric doesn't line up with the actual policy making. In order to be effective, there are certain committees that you have to be on. You can't just talk about job creation, but you're not on Jobs and Economic Development Committee. I want to say that under the leadership of Rena Moran, we have some of the worst economic disparities in the country. I want to say under the leadership of Rena Moran, we've got vacant homes, 3 of them on her block. This ought not be. I want to say that under the leadership of Rena Moran, that we don't have economic prosperity. We have regressive minimum wages. Vote Lena Buggs, vote November 4th.
My name's Lennie Chism. I've been joined by elected representative for 65A, Rena Moran, Democrat, Anthony Meshke, Republican, candidate Anthony Meshke, Republican, candidate Lena Buggs, Green Party. And I want to thank you for taking your time out of your campaigns to come down here to explain to KFAI listeners and your voters and our voters and the members of the state of Minnesota that their vote counts, because they need to listen to each one of you to make a decision. So I do really appreciate that. And remember, November 4th is the date. And in fact, I think you can start voting right now, if I'm not incorrect. I think that was
a lot of residents have in our district already began voting.
That was early voting. I remember seeing that last night. So once again, I want to thank you very much for coming down.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.